Today, I shall be talking about information technology and education. As to discuss this topic, we shall be discussing what is information technology from the perspective of education and what is its definition in current scenario. Apart from that, we shall also be discussing what are the different aspects of information technology which can be utilized by teachers, may it be in the school education or higher education, as to improve the quality of education. Role of information technology in school education shall also be discussed, and we shall also be discussing role of information technology in higher education as well as role of information technology in professional education. We shall also be unraveling how information technology has been read in NEP 2020 and what are going to be impact of information technology in education as per NEP 2020. When we talk of education, in the past it was the teacher and the learner. That is, basically there were two domains. One was teaching and learning, and they were interconnected. But now, after the advent of information technology, it has changed the aim of education also. So now education is perceived as the process of creating, preserving, integrating, transmitting and applying knowledge. We shall be talking in detail about all these aspects, that how these particular aspects have been unraveled by the education with respect to the information technology. When we talk of knowledge, now the knowledge is no more static. It wasn't static ever, but it wasn't changing the way it is changing nowadays. And there have been revolution as far as knowledge is concerned. Information is coming at such a great speed that now the education or knowledge is perceived as revisionary, creative, personal and pluralistic. So, information technology has freed educational institutions from the constraints of even space and time. It has enabled the delivery of education services from anywhere, anytime. We have been witness to this aspect. During COVID, all the students were studying from their home, and there have been cases, rather multitude of cases, when the student was somewhere in Bihar and the classes were being held in Delhi. So the constraint of the space as well as the time has been given up. Even the teaching community has accommodated themselves as to take classes in the evening, even at late evenings as well. So educational services are now available anywhere and anytime. So we can see that in the form of teaching as well as in the form of libraries. Previously we used to have physical libraries, now we have digital libraries, and those digital libraries are available to anyone, anywhere, at their own place, and that has made the future of education very open. In fact, the future will hinge prominently how we construct and construe the place of technology in the education process. In fact, what we are doing is that education, which was the teaching, now it is just for you education, and it can be modulated for the requirement of the student. Education can be targeted to meet the need of the individual students, and that is due to the fact that we have been utilizing technology. And in the future, the technology will result in knowledge explosion. In fact, if we perceive that how it is going to impact or how it has impacted the world at large, the hardware and software technologies have facilitated the teaching learning processes, and the utilization of information technologies have made learners able to participate in the other learners throughout the world. That is, the learning community has become bigger, and the learners can interact with the learners of the world at large. Like the student in India can easily talk about his learning or his expectations from the particular subject with the person who is studying the same subject, suppose in America or Australia or England, and how it is different from our country. So that has provided students a spectrum of knowledge, and that has led to the students being able to explore in a better manner. On the basis of views of UNESCO, that is International Commission about studying the communication problem, one of the role of communication and information technology in the matter of education is transferring necessary information for the growth. So if we perceive how education is being perceived by UNESCO in the perspective of IT, now it is for making and growing the personality and learning their skills, as well as transferring the necessary various skills to the students, so that those learners can be helped as to recognize and understand not just what they are learning but also each other. In fact, when we talk about the social network which is available due to the advent of internet, so that has made the social network available to anyone and everyone, and the result is that everybody has developed a language, everybody can speak one's own mind, as well as have access to lot of information, and the information sharing, the knowledge sharing, the perception sharing, the feeling sharing, that has become quite normal nowadays. People are opening up, may it be on the Facebook, may it be on the Instagram. So they are the ways, the Twitter, they are the ways not just to communicate the information, but also the perception, the understanding, the appreciation, the feelings. So all those are being transmitted through social media. And when we talk of education, now education is not just restricted to books. In fact, education is something which is moving at a very great speed, and it is in fact a psychological movement as to find out one's own self in the world which has knowledge and information filtering in at such a vast speed. So now the students have to find out their self-confidence and psycho movement in this new world. So information technology has played a very important role, and its growth has brought new opportunities also in education. So if we say that information revolution is there, we won't be wrong. It is not a far-fetched statement when we say that there is information revolution, especially in education. In today's world, education needs modern, moderate and even simple technologies in order to meet its needs for its arrival as well as correct use. And the teaching community needs to prepare its students not just for the technological literacy, but also be able to capitalize on the technological information, the modern information technologies, so that they will have more information as well as structured information. So the time saving techniques have to be taught. As for that, the proper utilization of technology has to be taught, and the people have to be prepared for educational change. The psychological change is also required, particularly amongst teachers, so that they become open to the information technology, the use of information technology as to bring the change to the education. The same technology can facilitate the rapid exchange of information, may it be by the researcher on the specific topic, or because of the fact that a student has studied and sharing one's own information. So distribution of information is greatly increased, and this increased access to huge amount of data, that means students need help in selecting, evaluating and analyzing information. So now the important part is, which is to be taught to the student, is not to find out information which is relevant to the problem or topic or the subject. Rather, the need is that students should understand how to select, evaluate and analyze information, so that that information is valid, reliable as well as of importance to him. So, all these changes in learning have implication for teaching practices as well. How teaching practices shall change? Teaching practices now require teacher to act more as a facilitator than the kind of a teacher's role we had in the past, that was just giving information, because now the student can have information from any channel. So, the teacher has to facilitate the student how to understand, unravel and utilize that information for one's own progress. So, that requires teacher also to become a learner, and learner to such an extent that they should be able to understand and unravel the modern technology. They should become independent and free as far as these resources are concerned. They should be able to access to those resources in more productive fashion. So, role of teacher is no more conventional of that of a mentor, but rather it is that of a facilitator, that of a guide and that of a learner as well. So, when we try to understand that how education and information technology are to be combined, we have to understand that education means knowledge, education means learning, education means information, but that is in very simple manner. So, education is not just information, rather education, as we say, is a lifelong process. So, education which feeds on technology, that means it should become the basis of education and it should be accommodated and accepted as lifelong learning, and also being received from the different agencies owing to IT, may it be from the Google, may it be from the social media, or may it be from the digital libraries. So, the information, how it is to be filtered, how it is to be understood and how it is to be properly utilized, this is something which students need to understand. So, information technology has affected changes to the methods, purpose as well as potential of education. Potential of education now is far-fetched. The purpose of education has also changed. Now it is to make the students more dynamic. So, dynamism is at the center rather than information providing. Even the methods have changed. The method which was very popular in the classroom, that is the teaching learning method, that cannot provide the kind of learning which is expected by the students currently. So, the methods have to be more of a sharing as well as case studies, as well as the students should be allowed to go for researches and find out their own information, arrange that. So, teachers will have to be more involved and they will have to work on developing the skills of the students, because the potential of the students now lies in not finding out the information, but utilizing the skill for their own growth and for their own productivity. So, education as per policies should expand human resource of IT through educational program and promoting skills for increasing workforce efficiency in education. When we talk about IT, the education should be using IT for increasing efficiency, for better education, which has to be accompanied with creativity. So, supporting IT, for example, supporting the cost related to research and expansion in education is also one of a purpose of education now. Establishing proper atmosphere and participation morale in education by the use of IT is also one of the purpose of education. Establishing cooperation and coordination between various parts in the fields of using by using the tools, that is IT tools. So that is also one of the purpose of education. In fact, the social dimensions have to be studied in a different perspective as well as utilized differently. As we said, that establishing cooperation and coordination is something which has to be managed with the help of IT. Expanding the culture of using information technology through providing as well as encouraging its consumption in education. In fact, when we talk about information technology, it's very important that education considers matters such as needs, properties of scientific efficiency, economy, as well as facilities and skill potential which are required for utilization of information technology by the teaching community as well as by the students. So, all these aspects have to be unraveled, utilized as well as improved upon. When we talk about information technology, how it has stepped into or going to be step into the education system is through the various ways which have been introduced and which are working well in the other sectors and which have also been introduced in the education sector. For example, when we go to Amazon, how we are able to filter the things which we have to buy and add them to the cart. Similar kind of information filtering can be available in the education if we utilize artificial intelligence, machine learning in a proper manner. So, all these things are the aspects of future. In fact, if we say that in the future the students are going to learn from the machines along with the humans will not be a far-fetched statement. So, machines shall become the teacher because machine do have information, machine do have fairness, and the machine doesn't have that psychological constraints which have an impact on a teacher. So, it's going to be fair even in the assessment, even in the information transmission as well as in providing the inputs for the improvement to the students. So, AI, machine learning, blockchains, smart boards, handheld computing devices, adaptive computer testing. These are not the future words but the current words which shall play a very important role in building the new education for tomorrow. This has been accepted and accommodated not just by educationists but also by the policymakers, and the result is that information technology has been given a very important place in NEP 2020. Even the blended learning has become quite a common kind of learning in the higher education, and in the future it shall be taking more important role in the education system. Now let us try to understand each one of them, that what artificial intelligence, how it can impact the education. All these things we shall be understanding in today's lecture. When we talk about educational software and hardware, we have to understand that how those software and hardwares have to be developed. Just the ERN system, will it be sufficient for contributing to the education, or the AI system? AI can contribute in the improvement of education, making it more extensive and making it more fair. Can technology play an important role not just outside the classroom but also inside the classroom, as to make the student understand how the technology can provide him information, how the technology can help the teacher by assessing the students or by providing the information or improving the difficulty level of the students. These are the key things which we need to understand. In fact, nowadays quite many changes have been introduced. When we go to certain sites where the mock tests are available, we tend to practice on the mock test, and because of the artificial intelligence, we do get the paper assessed in seconds, and we get to know that where we have wrong or the kind of mistakes we have committed, and what are all the suggestions are also provided by the machine, that the mistakes were committed due to which fact, and that also provides student not just a scope to assess oneself, but also practice more without being perceived by the other person psychologically, because there are issues when a student is being assessed in the class. Then generally what happens is that student doesn't like to be assessed by the teacher or the students, because he or she feels that they would be looking down upon, and that often result in student not being open to improvement, not being open to trying to understand the mistakes which he has committed. But when he or she is working on a machine, then he or she does enjoy when the machine tells the kind of a mistake he or she has made, and when he or she sees that how he is improving through practice, then that really helps the student as to improve one's own knowledge as well as grading. So artificial intelligence can automate the basic activities in education. Even the grading can also be controlled by AI. If we add all the components, that is the marks of the students, the scores of the students, if they are added to the machine, then the AI can easily provide the grade, and those grades are generally at the comparative level, and because they are at a comparative level, student get to know his or her comparison, what he has done in the past, as well as be able to understand where he or she stands in from the percentile perception as far as the other students are concerned. Educational software can be adopted for the students' need, and this is already happening also. In fact, adaptive learning programs are being introduced, games are being introduced, the softwares are being introduced which make students work more efficiently, because when they work on those games, mathematical games or the scientific games, the student is able to think more, and also that also improves the memory of the student. So there is growth of adaptive learning programs, as well as there are introduction of many softwares which are improving the education sector. In fact, the courses have been introduced which can improve the students' tendency or the students' potential to use the technology well, because it has been seen that if there are artificial intelligence tutors, then they can provide the additional support to the students. Now all of us are aware of the kind of a help we get, may it be from the phone level. For example, when those of us who use the telephone, we do get the help either from the Google or the Google lady, which directs us towards the way when we add certain destination. So these kind of support is very much possible even in the education sector, that is, each student can be guided how to improve one's own self or to reach particular level. In fact, AI driven programs can give students and educators helpful feedback also, because when the student is working on certain program and if he or she is not able to do well, then naturally AI informs him that what are the lacunas and what also suggests the appropriate answer, and the rationale also for that is given by the system, and the result is that the student does get the feedback as well as shows the improvement also. In fact, AI needs we to interact more with the information, and this is going to change the role of the teachers in future. Dear friends, we shall be talking about AI in further detail. Apart from that, we shall also be talking about the other component of information technology in my next lecture. Till then, Namaskar, very good afternoon, be safe, take care of yourself, Jai Hind.